Hey everyone, welcome back to Remember This Tech. Today I'm going to try to do a little bit of an upgrade to the HP XW8600 workstation. What am I going to do and will it make a difference is, well, originally it had a 3.2 gigahertz dual core CPU. Now I have dual quad core 3 gigahertz CPUs total in there of 8 cores. I upgraded the SSD, which I'm going to try to install Windows 10 Pro back on. First change we'll have to do is reset the default settings to in the BIOS. Sometimes it gives you issues to boot from the USB media. So stick with me. Let's see if these upgrades may bring this computer a little bit farther up the ladder in today's computing standards. See what we can do with it. Let's get going. Positive step is it sees Windows from the USB media. Second step would be, does it recognize Samsung 850 drive? If it does, we'll try to install. And of course, it hates something. Hardware failure, NMI, hardware failure. What can that be? Alright, let's see if we can't pull up a code using our phone and take a picture of that barcode and go to the link. Sometimes you can go to the link and it'll show you, it says blue screen error, unexpectedly shut down or restart. But I didn't restart it, I did shut it down. So hardware or software issues, blue screen, blah blah blah, tells me nothing. Alright, another exercise in futility. You can't control delete to restart, so you have to POR it hard, which in itself can cause problems. Was it a bad CPU that I bought off of eBay? This RAM is known good because it was working previously when I did my other video to test all the RAM sticks, so I didn't change any of that configuration around, so I know it's not that. Once more into the breach, trying to load Windows 7 Pro and then upgrade from there Windows 10, but technically it could be install media or USB through, I don't know. Technically it's meant to work with this hardware, but so I tried swapping out like 10 different combinations of RAM, including one stick at a time, and it still gave me that error. Something to do with some legacy BIOS feature regarding Windows 2008 server or something, some crap like that. I repopulated all the RAM slots exactly the way they were before I had a problem because it was working. I put in the SSD, the Samsung 850. Memory shows 20 gig and it's good in the configuration, so I'm going to save it. And then I put in the 3 gig 7950 HD Radeon card, and I'm not going to use Windows this time. I'm going to use Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition, try to boot from a distro on a USB boot drive. If it works, then I know it's something to do with the way Windows is loading and hardware interface or something. So it's the last attempt for a while. Just tired of messing with this, so we're going to find out if this is going to work or not. And if so, we'll continue on and we'll test it with Linux Mint. Change of plans. See what happens. And Linux Mint is here, so we will start Linux Mint. It even has a memory test. Check this out. I think I'd mentioned it before, but it's got a memory test, so we can even test the memory. So let's just start Linux Mint 21.1 Cinnamon Edition. See if we can get it to load. Detect my hard disk, my 850 Samsung SSD. Normally loads into memory and then you install it if you want to from there. So that's kind of where this distro runs. And it took a while when I loaded it on the Toshiba A6 6310 laptop, but this is pretty quick on this one. Check that out. That was not what I was expecting. And on the desktop you'll have the Linux disk icon to install Linux Mint. And you double click on it and it'll just install it. You go through the litany of questions and you'll choose what you want. After this fighting and this and that, I'm testing this because Windows is not working with this workstation for some reason. So let's do password created. Now we're setting up Linux Mint, everyone. Welcome back to Linux Mint. Fast forward, and is this 14-year-old HP XW8600 workstation, still usable in 2023 as a everyday driver, and will it have enough horsepower to play games too? The Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition took about 10 minutes overall to pull down a ton of updates and completely install, and we're going to reboot the system. Hopefully it still functions, and see if we can get onto the desktop now that it's loaded. Let's go. After not being able to get Windows to install for whatever reason and troubleshooting, got Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition, just went in there and started running like crazy. No problems, no startup issues, nothing. Using the exact same hardware as I had in the machine before when I tried to install Windows. And there we have it. Desktop is ready. Time to log in. And we are on a desktop of Linux Mint. 21.1, 64-bit. The more I use this new OS that they put out, the more I'm liking it. You know? Your desktop's going to have your all applications, background graphics. If you look, it's pretty snappy. Oh, actually, we only used 10 gig for the install, including all of those patches and updates. So that's pretty sweet. So I'm going to check the drivers, see what's here, what's installed, and then I'm going to go through and do updates for Software Manager and install some of the software that I want to test. I like their Update Manager because it's one-stop shopping. It tells you, hey, there's a new version update available. Apply the update. And I'm like, oh, great. Simple. I would say Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition, this new one that came out, is probably the easiest transition if you're a Windows user. Or maybe even a Mac user, because it's similar in regards to those both. So install updates, yes. Let's pull up System Monitor really quick while it's doing that. I like System Monitor on Linux Mint, Ubuntu. I mean, it's pretty no frills, obviously, but it gives you, or if you're new, this is what you get. It shows all 8 CPUs. They're barely even touching them. 1.4 gig of memory is used out of 21 gig. It's got 1.9 gig of cache used. Shows you what it's pulling down for the network. I got a 1 gig connection. It's got 8 3 gigahertz Xeon processors. If you do system settings, sysinfo, you can see it's loaded the Radeon drivers here. Shows my Intel Xeon E5450 processors. 20 gig of memory. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what we can do with this once we get all the updates. We'll be right back after this is done. Might not have been able to, do the sound card. Or maybe I didn't. Might have to put a Sound Blaster card in there. Enter Audigy ZS PCI. If I can't get that to work, here we have hard info again. It's a benchmarking program. Shows 2 processors, 8 cores, 8 threads. The max this monitor can do is 1680 by 1050. It's my test monitor. And it can show you how your system performs in comparison to others here. Hit generate report. You can do everything, but we do want to see benchmarks, and the benchmarks we want to see are all of these: CPU, GPU, and including with processor and such. So we will generate, and then we will put this on my desktop because it's easy to find. And then we let it go. We'll be back with the results. So Hard Info is a benchmarking program you can use under Linux. And it's free. And here we have the result of my test really quick. You see it sees all 8 cores at 3 gigahertz. All the cores, 8 of them at 3 gigahertz. 20 gig of memory, 15 gig free, tells the swap, virtual memory, all that good stuff. But we want to come down here to the CPU blowfish report, and this is me, 1.55. I'm not sure that's a great score for some reason, because a Phenom, AMD Phenom 2 X4 940 processor is 3.49. And look, Intel dual core is higher. Could that be wrong? Did it benchmark each one or whatever? It got a decent score in crypto hash, 554, and you can see it's in comparison to like a standard Xeon 5405, it's 117. So there's another CPU score. Doesn't say if lower is better. Floating point test, ray tracing 11.64, or did it get similar remarks? Like a quad core Phenom 2X4 beat it. That's telling you that this system's kind of old. Running good so far. First of many tests. So we're playing YouTube Playback at 1080p, 60 FPS.
Haven't skilled up, and a pack of dogs attacks you.
Nothing destroying it. Nothing slowing it down. I wonder what 4K can test at. So we're choking on 4K Playback. That is interesting, isn't it? Oh, we have an ace up the hole. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. But this has dual gigabit NICs, so let's see if that helps or screws the system up. And both connections are now on for the 2 gigabit NICs. And let's try to play the Playback, see if it helped. Doubtful. Double check that it's still at 4K, and it is. Dual gigabit NICs, shotgun. I only have a gigabit switch, but it's a little stuttery, but it's working. I would say it has problems with 4K on this system. We want to see if we can get this one here. Of course, it's only, 1080p monitor, but it's all right. All right, so the next test. Let's move on. For this particular Linux gaming session, we're going to have to install something that's called Proton, which enables more games to be played through this Steam library on Linux systems. And we're also going to try to get an overlay that shows up FPS and more to see what we're doing real time in the game for you. So let me pull up the command terminal and go from there. After you've got your video drivers installed, or at least made sure that they're up to date as they can be, go into Steam, up in the left hand corner, and go to settings, and then go to Steam Play, and then make sure enable Steam Play for supported titles, and then enable Steam Play for all other titles. Make sure that's selected, and make sure Proton, you can choose experimental or different versions, but experimental is kind of like the newest one they're toying with, and click OK. And then you'll have to restart Steam. So you can get more games available to you to be able to play on Steam. That's one of your initial steps you'll need to do. So once you've got Proton enabled and restarted your Steam client, if you come over here, you'll see your library should have more games. If it says install, you can install it, and you click on here and create a desktop. It'll show you how big the game is, and GTA 5 is huge. So, and then you agree, and it'll create it and download it for install. Now, once you've started that, you can go in the background and queue up another game. but it'll tell you it's downloading it, so finish and let it do its thing. Now I'm interested to see if this title will work because it's a little bit intensive from a newer perspective of games that I have. And well, I'm gonna try to test games I think might work, and it's gonna be tough, but we'll see what we can do here. Now if you click on a game and it basically doesn't have install, then you might not be able to install it or play it. So that's your first clue. We'll install Left 4 Dead 2, see if that works. Red Dead Redemption 2. It might take forever to get this installed, so we'll let it go. What we're going to try here is streaming War Thunder, the online war game that I like to play. Streaming it from my desktop upstairs to this machine here. And let's see if it's going to work. And technically it's going to stream it from the other desktop on my main computer. And in order for this to work, your other machine that has it installed has to run it, and you're kind of stream it from there. So you need two machines. Whether or not this is going to be horrible or not, it's a different story. But upstairs, the other machine can run it really easy. It's brand new. We're running at kind of a compressed resolution, sort of. I've not ever done this before. But first time for everything, right? So technically you don't need to have this installed on the PC or playing it on, you know, so, but the device you're streaming it from, it has to have it installed rather. I'm not sure what the experience is going to be like. Not the greatest of graphics. I'm playing it. Why did I follow all these idiots? I don't know. Totally gonna lose this match because everybody went the other way, and well, I'm gonna die. They like captured the bridge and you can't do anything about it. Alright, so you can probably stream this from the other desktop pretty well, but it's a little laggy, I suppose, but you're not stuck with the performance of the old machine that you have. You can run it, you know? So yeah, I just streamed it from my upstairs machine to here, played it from remote. So that's a pretty good test there, you know? I'm gonna try Left 4 Dead 2, 16 by 80 by 1050. It's kind of what we have for native, so let's just play survival mode. We're gonna see how choked it gets on this system, but let's see what happens once it loads and gets into the game. Should be coming up. Alright.
Hey, thanks.
It's pretty good.
Weapons over here! I'm gonna take this rifle. Great.
Running at 60 FPS. Whoa. I died instantaneously. That didn't work at all. I mean, I died. When the horde came up on me, you know, pretty much died
I don't think so.
instantaneously.
Full auto shotgun.
So you can play this game at 60 FPS, but it's probably based on the Half-Life 2 engine if I'm not wrong, so it's not horrible. We're going to test some drive benchmarks. The Samsung 850. Let's zoom in and try it to show you his. If you pull up the disk partition utility and you click on the disk you want to benchmark right here on this left side, you'll see benchmark partition. And then you can start the benchmark and you can do some very simple parameters and then just start benchmarking. So again, we're limited to the SATA 1 bus here. And I read somewhere that one of the ports on the system board was actually, well, two of them were actually SATA 2 ports. I can't for the life of me find out which one they are. They're supposed to be 4 and 5, but it's not. 143 megabits per second. Because we're stuck on the same thing. I also put in the Audigy 2ZS because the onboard sound wasn't being recognized and under Linux. So let me move on with a couple more tests and go from there. So here's the NVMe adapter, PCI Express slot, and I have the 500 gig NVMe, and this is what I'm hooking up to the boot drive of the PCI Express, but it is SATA 6, so it should enable me to boot from Samsung 850 drive with this, and we should benchmark now at SATA 6 speeds with the PCI Express 16 slot. Let's get it in there and let's test it. I wasn't able to boot up off the NVMe drive on the adapter, the PCI Express adapter, but I put in the new SATA 6 PCI Express card and I hooked up Samsung 850 drive and I turned my head for a minute farting around and it booted right up. This is that install. I have the Samsung 850 that I've been testing the system on, and right here you have the benchmark, but I'll zoom in for you. Go ahead and start benchmarking. So we got 186.2 megabits per second on this last run. Well, we should be getting faster than that, honestly, because let's see, it kind of peaked out at 189, 186. So what do we gain? We gained 40 megabits per second with the new controller card, and I think I know why. This card was in the PCIe 1X slot. I'm gonna swap it and put it in a 16X slot. And this number right here should improve, I think. That's my test. You see right here, this is an NVMe drive on the PCI Express 16 slot, and we'll benchmark this one. Right here, this is the NVMe drive that I have the Linux installed on, but it wouldn't boot. It just can't do it. 1.3 gigabits per second. That, my friends, is amazing. So that's a storage solution if you need extra speed on an old machine like this. An NVMe adapter with an NVMe drive and a PCI Express 16 slot. So right there, 1.3 gigabits per second. I'm going to put this controller for the SATA 6 into the PCI Express 16 slot and redo the test. And that's the boot drive. Let's do that. We'll pull up the disk manager program. Now, I know this is rudimentary, but it tells you it still has a good gauge, and you type in disks, pull up the disk manager, and it's pretty snappy now, I can tell you right now. And then go to benchmark partition, and again you can see the Samsung have 250 samples, 100 megabit size, and we have just achieved even more speed. Granted, it's not the full potential of the 850 drive, but look, 344.9 megabits per second. That is a, well, at least double from what we had from the main SATA bus, the SATA 1, you know? And if we come back here, this is the NVMe drive, and I put it in a 1x slot. Not really that slow. It's 661 megabits per second. You can tell how much faster that NVMe drive, even on the PCI 1x slot, is. It's insane. The next step in testing the limits of the XW8600 is to put in the 1660 6 gig card, but unfortunately it needs an 8-pin connector for power supply, and this 800 watt power supply, even though it's nice, it only has 2 6-pins. Here comes an adapter from 4-pin Molex to 8-pin connector, and I got a 2-pack for $8 on Amazon, which will come in handy, I'm sure, especially for testing, you know, later on the road. So I just got it, and I'm gonna plug it into a spare Molex, and then we'll have power for this card. We're gonna plug it in, update the drivers, and then we'll just see if we can't get more performance out of the system, and then we'll test 1 or 2 games, and that'll be probably the end of what I'm going to test, because we've reached our limit for this system as far as I'm concerned. So let's get this put in and we'll boot it up and test it out. So I got Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition booted up with the new graphics card. And, okay, system info shows Nvidia GeForce 1660 Ti. Let's see the driver manager, see if there's anything to update. We've got some graphics drivers that showed up here. Probably the latest ones. So it says recommended here. Okay, apply changes. Why am I recommending you always do this is because, well, you don't want to be running with some old drivers, because you're going to get bad performance. And the point of this is to see if we can squeeze as much performance out of the system as possible. So install those drivers, and we'll be right back, and then we'll test a few games. Alright, we're giving Bioshock 2 another shot on this machine, and I'm going to select some options here. It loaded a lot faster, but we're gonna like go for the gusto here and put it at 1680 by 1050, and that looks a lot better. So let's go back and click continue, because I had a save game here from before. But look, we're at 60 FPS. That's pretty good. Playing really good. Maxed out at 60 FPS. That's probably because maybe VSync's on, but hey, whatever. So this game's definitely good to go. We got GTA 5's running now. Hovering at 31, 32 FPS. I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah.
Are we doing this?
And I'll show you the settings right now. We are at 1440 by 900, which isn't horrible, but 30 FPS. On the HP XW8600.
There's enough here for us all to enjoy.
Still going 32. 30, 31. It's not dropping. So it's 100% playable. Let's try another game. And you can see that we're running about 30 to 40% on the CPUs. Not horrible. And we've got Borderlands, the original, Enhanced Edition Game of the Year, and we are running at 60 FPS, if you can see up here, and we're at 1680 by 1050, and we have set the system to unlimited frames per second, and see how playable it is. I like the soldier in the first one because you can set up a gun with the shield. You can hide behind. Doing like 87 FPS. If you can see this up here, 99, 103. Oh yeah, this game is old. Yeah, of course it is, but so is this workstation. $77 and $85, so yeah, 100% playable at 1680 by 1050. So we're gonna quit and consider this another success. I'm trying to get Red Dead Redemption to play online with all the upgrades to the system. It's the last game I'm going to test, and I still haven't gotten it to launch into online mode yet. It keeps loading a few frames like this, teases me like it's going to play, and then it crashes. That's the last attempt, and that's it. Unlimited frame rate set up with 1680 by 1050, and you see we're 50 to 60 FPS here. But at this phase, I'm upgrading with the 1660 GTX card and running on the SSD with a SATA 6 adapter card. Is a lot better. Less lag, less jerkiness. It is like perfectly playable. Just trying to get to the next section. Obviously, this is a lot more up-to-date graphics than Borderlands 1.
Keep your wits about. Pandora, handsome Jack here, offering $1 million to whoever brings me the head of the Vault Hunter who just arrived in Liarsburg. Oh, and I'm still offering a reward for Roland, the mass-murdering leader of the Crazy Raiders.
Yeah, it's not like I'm playing on my main system, but it's perfectly fine. Yeah, we're maintaining 30 FPS. I mean, everything's set on high too, so 30 to 50 FPS. Spiking at 60. You can play this game on here. My guns suck in the beginning, you know. They don't really have good setup. Who's this moron shooting at me? This gun sucks. So, another win for this system. Working good. In wrapping up this video, if you have one of these HP XW8600 machines and you're thinking about upgrading it, the only thing I can say is don't spend a lot of money. If you're intent on upgrading it, upgrade to a SATA 6 card adapter and run your boot drive from there so you get maximum speed for your applications and your OS. And if you really want to, you can buy an NVMe and put that in a 16 slot PCI Express and run all your really intensive applications and programs from there for extra storage. Now, it can take a faster video card, and granted it's limited to Gen 2 slots for PCI Express, but it'll still give you a lot better performance. And the final thing is, If you can upgrade from a dual core to dual quad cores like me, that's what you should do. And don't go overboard. I wouldn't spend more than $100 on the system. I only spent like $10 on both of those quad core Xeons for the upgrade total. So we've reached the maximum performance potential for this system so far. Any other upgrades, any other money dumped into it, you're not going to realize gains, in my opinion. You'd be better off sticking it into a newer platform, a newer system, and you'll get so much better performance for your money. But if this is what you have, stick to my recommendations, you'd be okay. Thanks for watching. Remember this tech.